Hello, welcome back to BLENDERSUSHI Live Noding. In this episode, we're gonna take a look at how to create this kind of design. Currently, you might see, okay, you have like a bunch of curve that looks like representing like a jumping character. If you're like an animator, you look at this curve and hey, yeah, it looks like a curve that might look if you're animating a character jumping around. But this is actually a setup that's uses adaptive edges and also this easing in function. So this is basically functions, and we are replacing the edges of line using these functions. So in the later on, when I continue with this concept, I might try to do some kind of design that's using a grease pencil and trying to generate like maybe I'm making like a 20 variations of curve using grease pencil, just hand drawn it. Currently I'm using just the function that's provided in Blender. So I found this quite interesting. So that's all the function that Blender provides, all the curve function that you normally you use it for animation. If you want to do it procedurally, you might be familiar with all these functions: bounce, ease in, ease out, and linear interpolations. Linear interpolation being the simplest, and it does nothing. It's just like a straight line. Actually, this one is interesting. Elastic. It gives you this kind of a heartbeat animation, and we can actually randomize. So there's a slight variance on the line here. Actually, one of the Stretch developer, Zephy, gave me this preview of all the functions, and if you visualize all the functions, it looks like just like a bunch of curve. We are familiar with the sine curve. The sine curve goes between -1 and 1, but if you push it between 0 and 1, it's looking like that. All kind of functions, but of course they're like a tools, right? And they're can be limited, but we can take advantage of them as well, because to draw curve, if we just just use a grease pencil or just draw random curve, it's pretty simple to do. But if you need to turn this into like a functions, it's a little bit harder. Unless you're resampling the curve, right? Resampling is not a big deal. So the whole idea is really like this: provide a bunch of curve. Let's say you have linear curve and you have like curve like this, and then bouncing curve, whatever, and then just add them together. This is actually my plan. So you might end up with something that looks like this, and then if you continue doing that, it might end up with a like interesting design, even though originally this is for really for animations to give like a slow in, slow out, and things like that. Okay, let's do this from scratch. Actually, I might actually no need to do it from scratch, but just for clarity's sake, let's do it from scratch anyway. So save this. First of all, we have to generate points from the function. So we know that the function is easing 0, 1, and this function likes a value between 0 and 1. If you use range float and plug in a value between 0 and 1, you actually will get something. The output is gonna be a range of number. You see, this is a linear value. File save as. This is a curve combo or curve mixing. I don't know. And if you want to visualize it here in 3D, it needs to be a vector, 3 value. So vector in, and we need a viewer draw as well. And I believe Blender just crashes. Let's just restart Blender real quick. Blender doesn't actually crash that often. It's just I don't know, maybe it's my computer. Just wait a few seconds. Okay, we're back. Curve mixing. Okay, again, we need to have a vector value. Viewer draw should be goes to the output. This number can go into the Z direction, or actually keep it flat and just work on the X and Y. So plug it into the Y, and then we can see some points there, but they are only 0, 0, 0. We want them to grow so as well, so plug that to the X. Now you can see between 0 and 1, this function generates these dots. If we change it to sine, it creates a sine wave. I can increase the number of points, and you can see clearly that's a curve. That looks like a curve. They're just like a bunch of points. We can turn it into a curve if we want to, using the UV connection. Edges. Okay, you see the blue line? That's a curve, and you can change it to anything. See, that's why if we use the elastic ease in, ease out, we get that kind of shapes. That's can be very interesting for what we are doing. Now, let's say we have this curve, and then we want to use this curve to generate our design. I'm gonna use line, and I'm gonna use adaptive edges. These two will help us to generate the design. So the curve, the easing function will be used to as a donor for line. So the line is going to be the recipient, and this is going to be the donor. And if we look at the result now, I believe okay, it works. We don't need to use slicing, I don't think. So this is it, basically. The design is rather simple. You can change the function here. Control Shift and then scroll can help you to go through all this function real quick. This is a bounce in and out. Apparently, if you use a math function, you can also control the amplitude, sort of, while the start and stop we might need to do like some kind of remap or something here in order to stretch, squash in, squash kind of to squash this thing. Let's see, perhaps here. So that's controlling the amplitude. This one, if we change the stepping, maybe if I use like a remap range 0, 1 to that's also kind of controlling the amplitude. We can I guess we can play around with all this number, but basically if I change the stepping of this line, let's say I'm using random number generator, and for the stepping I will have like a random value. Let's try this. You see our design 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. This is 5 because we have 6 vertices. So here, the power node here is the adaptive edges. Okay, we have line here. Line will generate lines, basically. Currently with a different stepping, sometimes short, sometimes long. And for each segment, we're gonna draw these functions, whether it's a sine function, linear functions, or bounce function, whatever function. So this is exactly what's happening at the moment. We might actually be able to plug this guy into that guy and have a bit of variations. See, the adaptive edges doesn't really squash or stretch. It's just simply replacing it proportionally. This can be a good, sometimes you want it to stretch and squash though. Maybe just remember just one thing. I have to mention that the easing functions or many of the nodes, basically Squareshops add-on is made by some developers, right? They give you nodes that really give you the power. It's kind of like unlocking lots of possibilities, and then but these nodes might have certain limitations that it might not do what you want, and in order to extend that you might need to write your own script node or write your own functions or even make your own nodes and that everyone can use. So I like noding because coding for me is still kind of a mystery. Sometimes it's not an easy thing. Coding is when dealing with codes, if you're just writing text, I found it a little bit difficult. But if you're using nodes, it's a lot easier in the way that your mind got levitated, or it's got help to contain the idea. So even though noding is not really coding, it's still kind of a visual programming sometimes. I never want to get that idea, because if people learn programming, it's for them it's really hard, and they don't even want to start doing programming if they heard the word programming, because their imagination is all this scripting and coding and all this programming language. It's all like alien. But if you are using nodes like this, things kind of make sense a bit. Even if you only knows the basics, it can take you pretty far. Like I said, like this kind of thing, like generating this kind of curve, is something that I can never imagine. Okay, but we can do it. Okay, this is apparently okay. The seed. We need to plug in the number here. Before I forgot, this control the size of the random number, and this control the size of the vertices as well. So this looks like a heartbeat, but it's actually just elastic. Ease in, ease out. Is this a function? This is like a bounce. Yeah, some function give you like a really interesting result, but linear is just looks pretty straight. That's actually quite nice. I don't know what you can use it for, but let's say you have like 20 of them. You can bake it, and you have a curve. Let's see if this curve is a good curve. This is a mesh. We can turn it into convert to curve. Offset, extrude, depth, maybe no offset. So that's quite a nice thing. This guy, we can skin it. Oh, it's actually a separate curve. I just realized. Yeah, it's a separate curve. We might need to join it. So adaptive edges, and we might need to remove doubles here. And this is cleaner. If we use skin modifier, it's gonna be like that. It's gonna be perfectly connected. Yeah, I guess that can be useful somewhat. Yeah, anyway, I think for this live noding, that's pretty much it. But just remember, this curve, the one we are currently using, is just generated. They're from Blender. Has some of them in the if you're doing animations, but they are like the most commonly used functions in computer graphics. But you can change functions to anything, and my plan is really, like I said, I want to be able to draw using my own hand, draw a design of curve using grease pencil, any kind of curve, and I want to be able to connect all these curves together programmatically. So yeah, maybe that will be easier at some stage. And yeah, I guess I'll have a think and continue on the next live noding video. Thanks again for watching. I'll leave me comments and feedbacks and suggestions down below if you have any. I'll see you in the next video. Thank you.